Better late than never. Today we will take a look at the newest etc. chapter, the memory window for the Uwasa of the Chelation land Ferris wheel, that's a mouthful, and how to beat all the bosses on standard, battler and nightmare difficulty. Starting off we have Toka on standard and battler mode, who is a rather quick and simple fight. She has 2 actions, and if you break her once and she somehow survives the break, she will actually take 3 actions instead from then on out. She also has a passive magic mechanic, where she will gain stacks of magic, and the higher her stacks, the more damage she will deal. Keep in mind that these stacks reset whenever she's broken or she uses her ultimate ability. Her ultimate ability simply deals a large amount of damage to the entire party and then consumes all of those stacks. Apart from that, she can deal AoE damage or single target damage, as well as do HP percentage damage to the party. HP percentage damage is also used by the Ferris wheel boss, by the way, and bypasses your barriers, making your defenders not as useful as healers in these fights. And whenever Toka takes one of her attacks, she also gains magic stacks. Even if she does reach a high amount of stacks, however, her overall damage output is not large enough to be a big threat, and since she does not have a lot of HP, dealing with her should be rather simple on the lower difficulties. The Ferris wheel on standard and battler is similarly quite simple, but for the first time ever somehow, actually has the exact same passive and active abilities as on nightmare mode. Because of this, I will instead skip talking about Ferris wheel for now, and get back to it in a second when we talk about it on nightmare mode. First off though, let's quickly mention Toka on nightmare mode. She actually does have some differences, and that is that now she also gains magic stacks whenever she takes damage outside of break, and can now also buff her own attack for 2 turns, which can be removed with buff removal from characters like 3-star Hasuki or 4-star Ayame. It is now a lot more likely that Toka will gain a lot of magic stacks because of this, and as a hidden passive, she will now also automatically counter-attack with her ultimate if you push her to full magic stacks even outside of her turn. Because of this, you should probably take a close look at her magic stacks throughout the fight and make sure that your healer has healed the party to full before she reaches full magic stacks, and or making sure that your defender uses a barrier just before she reaches maximum stacks. And while it is true that Toka has an HP percentage attack that bypasses barrier, that is only a single one of her attacks, and all of her other attacks, including her ultimate, are regular attacks that do of course have to destroy your barriers first before dealing damage to your HP. So remember to keep track of your stacks next to her HP bar, heal up and shield up just before you push her to max stacks, and she should go down rather fast. And now it's time for the real main event, the nightmare mode Ferris wheel. As a lot of people have pointed out already, this is one of the easiest nightmare mode bosses out there, and if you were able to beat the bosses before this boss should be quite simple, and so you can already breathe a sigh of relief. But let's actually go over what this boss does. The Ferris wheel is weak to light and dark and takes 2 actions per turn, and will gain a huge attack buff after every break, making the boss much more dangerous the longer the fight goes on. Apart from that, the boss will repeatedly deal AoE damage to the entire party, and also use an HP percentage attack against singular targets, which also becomes stronger the longer the fight goes on. Lastly, the boss can heal itself, which yes also becomes stronger the longer the fight goes on, however the increasing heal amount actually does reset every time the boss is broken. Overall, you can tell the idea behind this boss fight is that the boss will slowly become more dangerous for every passing turn and for every break inflicted on the boss, meaning the general strategy should be to rush the boss down and kill it in as few turns and in as few breaks as possible. To do this, a strong attacker and strong supports to increase your damage are quite important. Since the boss is weak to light, I recommend a Marukami or a Homura if you have them, but even an Oriko may do well here. Sadly, there is no good low rarity option for this slot. For supports you can use Hasuki and Oriko since they are light type, as well as Lux Madoka, who's of course a freebie character and is also a light type. Generally, simply choose whatever light and dark type you think makes sense for your team, but keep in mind you will need a decent amount of damage on the team. As far as sustain goes, you can actually do it with a low rarity healer like Arera, who does pretty well here since the boss mostly does AoE damage and Arera only has AoE heals, but since the boss only has a single attack that can actually bypass barrier, which starts out rather weak, you can also actually still use a defender like Kirika if you want to. The main reason this boss will be one of the easier bosses, however, for low investment accounts specifically, is that since the boss is weak to light, you can just use a 4-star Hasuki and your freebie Lux Madoka for great effect, and the both of them are already by themselves gonna carry most of the fight. You can blindly put them on any team for this boss if you have no better premium options, and then simply take a good sustain plus additional firepower and a good attacker, and that may already be good enough to steamroll this boss, even with a mostly low rarity and freebie team. To make this boss fight even easier, one tip you can make use of is skipping a boss turn with correct break timing. Now this is something that I'll talk about in a future video alongside a lot of other advanced hidden mechanics, but one hidden mechanic is that when a boss takes 2 actions per turn, you can actually break the boss after the first action and before the second action by interjecting with one of your special attacks, and breaking the boss at that moment, and it will straight up cancel the boss's second action while also giving you the maximum amount of time on the boss's break with your action pushback at that moment. This means if the boss is close to a break, you can actually hold your team's specials and then break the boss with a special right after the boss's first attack and before the second attack, and it will skip the boss's second attack. Now I'm showing off a low rarity and freebie clear in the background where I only use a single 5-star character, that being an attacker, and it's good enough for a break 2 break finish. And yes, my Homura is a 5, I can't downgrade her or anything, but even if she wasn't, a 2 break kill is not that difficult with good play, and Madoka will also do great here as well. If you do not manage to kill the boss in 2 breaks, despair not. Low rarity healers like Reda, however, will probably start to immensely struggle keeping the party alive, but if you actually do have a 5-star sustain like a Kaede or a Doppel Iroha as your healer, you can even go for more breaks than that. That said, I will leave the footage of my kill play out now, and I thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and I'll see you guys next time.